Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, where the future isn't just predicted, it's explained. For years, we've watched robots stumble around in labs. Impressive, sure, but ultimately, just demos, expensive demonstrations of what might happen someday. But something shifted, something fundamental, and it happened so quietly that most people missed it entirely. Humanoid robots aren't theoretical anymore. They're not in R&D labs waiting for a breakthrough. They're in factories. They're in warehouses. They're being manufactured by the thousands, not as prototypes, but as actual products. And for the first time, we're watching a real robot workforce take shape in real time. This is the story of how that happened. It's the story of what's driving it. And it's the story of what comes next, because the implications are massive, and they're happening faster than anyone expected. Let's dig in. Here's something that's easy to miss if you're not paying close attention. Most humanoid robots that exist today don't actually work yet. I mean that literally. They're not reliable. They don't operate in real environments. They're in pilot projects, carefully controlled environments, doing repetitive tasks on flat floors. But then you look at the production numbers, and reality starts to hit differently. Agibot, a Chinese robotics company you've probably never heard of, just shipped its 10,000th humanoid robot. 10,000, not 10, not 100. 10,000 robots rolling off production lines, going to us, or going to actual customers, doing AI and doing actual work. Figure AI, which raised over $1 billion in funding, just unveiled Figure 03. A robot designed from the ground up for mass manufacturing, not for research, not for demos, for production at scale. Agility Robotics has a factory in Oregon capable of building over 10,000 robots per year. Tesla is planning to produce 50,000 Optimus robots by 2026. This isn't hype anymore. This is manufacturing. And the gap between what we talk about and what's actually being built is wider than most people realize. But here's the question that matters. Just because we can manufacture robots at scale doesn't mean we've solved the hard problems. And that's where things get interesting. Let's be honest. Scaling is hard, really hard. And the robotics industry is running into challenges that manufacturing capacity alone can't solve. Take battery life. A humanoid robot that works for 90 minutes and then needs 9 minutes to charge isn't just inconvenient, it's economically inefficient. In a warehouse or factory, that robot spends a significant portion of its shift charging. Multiply that across hundreds of robots, and you're looking at wasted capacity or reliability. A factory operating at 99% reliability sees about 5 hours of downtime per month. But industrial customers, they expect 99.99% reliability. That's a completely different engineering problem. Then there's the fundamental demand question. Most companies don't have a single job that requires thousands of identical robots. Agibot's success comes from deploying hundreds of robots doing different tasks, not thousands doing one job. That's the real scaling challenge. Building a robot that can do enough different things to justify the deployment costs. And that's where the AI problem becomes critical. Because without truly intelligent, adaptable robots, you're limited to repetitive, single-task deployments. And there aren't that many of those jobs, so the industry is betting everything on one thing, that AI will solve this, that artificial intelligence will make robots flexible enough, smart enough, adaptable enough to do whatever a customer asks. That's a big bet, and it's not clear it's going to pay off. A robot without intelligence is just an expensive statue. It can move, it can balance, but it can't think. For decades, robots were programmed. You'd teach a robot a task, it would repeat that task perfectly, and that was it. It couldn't adapt. It couldn't learn. It couldn't handle anything's unexpected. But in the last few years, something changed. Deep learning models, the same technology that powers ChatGPT and image generators, started getting integrated into robotic systems. And suddenly robots could do things we didn't explicitly program them to do. Figure AI calls this physical AI. It's the idea that large foundation models, the same kind of AI that understands language, can also understand the physical world. They can learn from video. They can understand cause and effect. They can predict what's going to happen when a robot takes an action. Figure's latest robot, Figure 03, has a sensory system purpose-built for this. High-frequency cameras, embedded palm sensors, tactile feedback in the fingertips that can detect 3 grams of pressure, about the weight of a paperclip. All of this feeds into an AI model that learns continuously. It's a feedback loop. Robot does task. Robot generates data. Fleet learns, robots do better tasks. Robots generate better data. The entire fleet improves together. But here's the catch. This only works if the AI is actually robust enough for real-world environments. And right now it's not. AI is still brittle. It fails on edge cases. It hallucinates. It makes mistakes that would be unacceptable in a manufacturing environment. The industry is hoping that more scale, more data, and better models will solve this. But that's hope, not certainty. For years, robotics was a startup game. Scrappy companies with big dreams and limited resources. But that's changing fast. Google DeepMind is deploying AI models into robots. They recently partnered with Agile Robots to bring their foundation models directly into humanoid systems. Tesla? Building Optimus at scale, with the intention of eventually producing millions. Amazon? Quietly integrating robotics deeper into their supply chain, expanding beyond their warehouse robots into more complex tasks. And this matters because big tech brings resources that startups can't match. Computational power, data, talent, the ability to iterate quickly and absorb losses while you figure things out. Google DeepMind's Gemini robotics model is specifically designed to understand the physical world in ways previous AI systems couldn't. It can reason about objects, predict outcomes, and guide robot actions. This isn't just a language model applied to robots. It's AI that's been trained to understand physics. When a company like Google enters the space, it signals something important. They believe this is going to work. They believe robots are going to become a core part of the economy. And they're willing to bet billions on it. But big tech's entry also raises a different kind of question. Who controls the robot brain? If the most advanced AI models are owned by a handful of companies, then the entire robotics industry becomes dependent on those companies' platforms, their APIs, their pricing structures. That's not just a technical question, it's a geopolitical one. But here's the real test. Where are these robots actually deployed right now? BMW announced they're deploying humanoid robots in their German assembly plants, not in the future. Now, these robots are doing actual manufacturing work alongside human workers. Warehouses are seeing the biggest adoption. Humanoid robots are moving boxes, sorting packages, handling pallets, the kind of repetitive, physically demanding work that causes injuries and burnout in human workers. And unlike earlier automation, these robots can navigate unstructured environments. They can adapt to changes in warehouse layouts. They don't require the entire facility to be redesigned around them. Figure AI has deployed robots to paying customers, not pilots, not research projects. Actual commercial deployments where customers are paying money for robots to do work. And the economics are starting to make sense. A humanoid robot costs somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 today. That's expensive. But if a robot can do the work of a human worker and work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then the payback period starts to get interesting. A worker costs maybe $50,000 to $80,000 per year in wages and benefits. A robot costs $150,000 to $200,000 up front, but it works indefinitely. The math changes quickly when you factor in that a robot doesn't take vacation, doesn't call in sick, and doesn't have a retirement plan. So we're seeing the first wave of real deployments. Not thousands yet, but hundreds. And the numbers are growing. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this breakdown of where robotics is actually heading, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And turn on notifications so you don't miss when we go deeper into how this technology is reshaping industries. Okay, back to it. Here's something that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Agibot is Chinese, and they're shipping more robots than anyone else. That changes the conversation, because robotics isn't just a business story anymore. It's becoming a geopolitical story. The United States is investing heavily in robotics through companies like Figure, Boston Dynamics, and Agility. Europe is funding research and startups. But China is manufacturing at scale right now. Agibot's 10,000 robots represent actual economic output, actual deployment, actual experience with real-world problems. And that matters because the company that solves robotics first, the company that figures out how to make robots truly general purpose, truly adaptable, truly economical, that company will have a massive advantage. Not just economically, but strategically. Robots will move goods. Robots will manufacture products. Robots will eventually do things we haven't even imagined yet. Whoever controls that technology controls a significant portion of the global economy. Western governments are starting to notice. There's talk of robotics export controls, similar to what exists for semiconductors and AI chips. There's concern about technological dependency. What happens if a critical supply chain relies on Chinese robots and geopolitical tensions spike? This isn't paranoia. This is the reality of technology competition in a multipolar world. And robotics is becoming a domain where that competition is playing out in real time. The irony is that this competition is probably accelerating development. Every major power wants to be the one that cracks general-purpose robotics. That's driving investment, driving research, driving deployment. But it's also creating tensions that didn't exist when robotics was just a startup story. Let's talk about the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Robots are going to displace workers. Warehouse workers are already seeing changes. Robots are taking over the most repetitive, physically demanding tasks, and that's not all bad. Those are often the jobs that cause injuries, repetitive strain, burnout. If a robot can do that work, that frees humans up for other things. But the economic research is complicated. Some studies show that automation creates more jobs than it destroys. Other studies? Not so sure. The reality is probably somewhere in the middle, but the distribution matters. Automation tends to displace workers in specific sectors, manufacturing, logistics, warehouse work, while creating jobs in other sectors. But those jobs are often different. They require different skills. They're in different places. A warehouse worker in Ohio doesn't automatically become a robot maintenance technician in Silicon Valley. So there's real disruption coming, and it's not evenly distributed. Some workers, some regions, some industries will see massive displacement. Others will see opportunities. The economic benefit isn't spread evenly either. The companies that deploy robots see massive productivity gains and profit increases. The workers whose jobs are displaced, they see unemployment, retraining costs, wage pressure in whatever sector they move to. This is why the labor question is so important, because robotics isn't just a technical story. It's a social story. It's a story about how we distribute the gains from automation. It's a story about what we do with workers whose jobs become obsolete. And right now, we don't have great answers to those questions. But we're going to have to figure them out. Because the robots are coming, whether we're ready or not. Here's a distinction that matters. Physical AI is different from the AI you've been hearing about. Digital AI, the stuff that powers ChatGPT, image generators, language models, that operates in the digital realm. It works with text, images, data. It's fast, it's scalable, it's already transforming how we work. But physical AI has to operate in the real world. It has to deal with friction, with gravity, with objects that don't behave the way you expect them to. A language model can make mistakes, and the worst that happens is you get a weird response. A robot that makes mistakes might drop something expensive or hurt someone. That's why physical AI deployment is harder than digital AI deployment. The requirements are more stringent. The margins for error are smaller. Right now, there's a deployment gap between what's technically possible with AI and what's actually being deployed in the real world. Companies like Figure and Agibot are working to close that gap. By building robots that learn from real-world data, by deploying at scale to generate more data, by iterating quickly. But it's a chicken and egg problem. You need deployment to generate data. You need data to improve the AI. You need better AI to justify more deployment. The companies that can afford to operate at a loss while closing that gap, that's where the advantage lies. And that's why big tech's entry into robotics matters so much. They can afford to close that gap. They have the capital, the patience, the long-term vision to invest in physical AI, even if it takes years to see returns. Smaller robotics companies, They're trying to do the same thing with limited resources, and that's a disadvantage they might not be able to overcome. We're at an inflection point. For the first time, humanoid robots are being manufactured at real scale, thousands of them in factories as actual products going to actual customers. This is different from anything we've seen before. It's not a lab breakthrough, it's not a prototype demonstration. It's a business model that's starting to work. Agibot shipping 10,000 units. Figure planning to ship 100,000 over the next 4 years. Tesla targeting 50,000. These aren't theoretical numbers. These are manufacturing plans backed by real capital, real supply chains, real customer demand. And the robots are getting better. Figure O3 is more manufacturable than Figure O2. It's cheaper to build. The sensory systems are better. The AI integration is tighter. Each iteration brings the technology closer to being truly general purpose. But here's what's important. Scaling is creating a feedback loop that didn't exist before. More robots in the field means more data. More data means better AI. Better AI means more valuable robots. More valuable robots means more customers. More customers means more manufacturing. More manufacturing means lower costs. Lower costs mean more adoption. If this feedback loop sustains itself, we're looking at exponential growth over the next 5 to 10 years. Not linear growth, exponential. And that changes everything, because exponential growth in robotics means exponential changes to labor markets, supply chains, manufacturing, logistics, the entire physical economy. We're not at that point yet, but we're close, maybe closer than anyone realizes. So what does all of this actually mean? What should you be paying attention to? First, the robotics revolution is real, and it's happening now. Not in 10 years, not in 5 years. Right now. If you work in manufacturing, logistics, warehousing, or any physically intensive industry, this is directly relevant to you. Second, the companies that crack general-purpose robotics first will have an enormous advantage. Not just economically, but strategically. This is why big tech is investing so heavily. This is why the geopolitical tensions are rising. Third, the economic disruption is going to be real, and it's going to be uneven. Some workers will benefit, others will be displaced. Some regions will boom, others will struggle. The question isn't whether disruption is coming, it's how we manage it. Fourth, the AI inside these robots is going to keep improving. Each deployment generates data. Each data point improves the model. The robots that are in the field right now are teaching themselves to be better, faster, smarter. And they're doing it in real time. Fifth, this is a long game. We're not at the end of this story, we're at the beginning. The robots working in warehouses and factories right now are primitive compared to what's coming. But they're good enough to be useful, and that's the tipping point. If you're watching on your phone, there's a hype button right below the video. Smashing that really helps smaller channels like ours get discovered and helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into what's actually shaping the future. The robotics revolution isn't coming, it's here. And the next 5 years are going to determine who wins, who loses, and what the future of work actually looks like. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, and I'll see you next time on Tomorrow Unveiled.
Let the future be